LeBlanc, who's the LeBlanc, I'm sorry, and not good enough for Kash Patel, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. It's weird. The new finance minister is getting an ethics screen for dealing with Irving because he's got dealings. He stayed at one of the Irving's houses the last time he was out east. So it's a very close friendship. So interesting, right? So I wonder how they're going to benefit from that nice, tidy arrangement. Mischief trial conclusion. Tamara Lich is 1 month away from knowing her fate. I feel strongly that if the prime minister is not Justin Trudeau, there will be no jail time. If the prime minister is Justin Trudeau, they're going to try and put both Tamara Lich and Chris Barber in jail for as much time as they can possibly justify. And I don't know. I think that's why the judge is kicking the case down the road. I don't know if the judge can do it another time to make sure that Justin Trudeau is not in leadership, but I have no idea. We'll see. We'll find out soon enough, I guess. GST holiday post-mortem. I've got that from Holly Doan, so that's interesting. Harper is on Team Canada too. He says, there is no amount of economic turmoil that we won't endure, that I would not force on you Canadian citizens to maintain Canada's sovereignty and riches, he says. So that's pretty selfish if you ask me. Freeland wants to tariff Teslas as well. She called up Jagmeet Singh and said, that's a great idea, Jagmeet. We'll do that as well. And so there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We're talking about our grab bag of governance, because we're going to go into tariffs, and there's a whole bunch of stuff later. We've got leadership to talk about, Carney and Freeland, and there's a whole bunch of stuff later with regards to U.S. stuff. But the tariffs here are a big story, and we've got to talk about that. USAID is another big block of tabs. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Laurie Goldstein says, more than 100 Canadian business leaders call for an end to prorogation of Parliament. I mean, do we have a corporatocracy already? Do the businesses run things already? It is kind of disheartening to not have a government at all. And the only government we have is from China, I guess. It's disappointing. And Doug Ford, right? So Holly Doan says, Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc in ethics filing promises to avoid all discussions benefiting J.D. Irving. Quote, the Ethics Canada Commissioner and I have agreed a conflict of interest screen is an appropriate compliance measure for me. So he is screened and can't favor Irving, but I mean, Irving's favored anyway, and everybody knows that. It's kind of a weird open secret. Andy Lee's talking about Brookfield. Mark Carney is having his own ethics concerns, but he doesn't have to disclose any of this. But good thing Andy Lee's on the case. She says, what a coincidence. Justin Trudeau says, Canada and France have been partners in AI from the start. We believe in its potential and we want to see it developed responsibly. Glad to hear the AI Action Summit in Paris to continue that work with you, my friend Macron, right? And Brookfield has invested 20 billion euros in France's AI infrastructure. It's almost like they know. And I've got another Brookfield investment piece of news from 2018 that's kind of coming back in a eyebrow-raising way today. So that's interesting. But Brookfield seems to be right at the forefront. They know what's happening in the world before anybody else, even the governments. So isn't that weird, right? And now Mark Carney wants to be in the government. Just lucky us, right? Tamara Lich says, 1 month from today, Chris Barber and myself will receive the verdict in the longest Mischief trial of all time. What began as a 16-day trial stretched into a year and a half, with the prosecution costing taxpayers well over $5 million. My heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has shown up to support us and to all who are planning to make the trip out for the judge's decision. However, if you are coming to interrupt the court proceedings, be disrespectful to the legal teams, or yell at mainstream media reporters and call them names, then I ask that you kindly stay home. We have never and will never condone this behavior and have always advocated for peace and respect. So that's Tamara Lich. And Joe Warmington says, the trial started in 2023, went through 24, and continues in 25, 3 calendar years for a mischief charge. They're going to try and throw the book at them, and dragging the trial out is part of making it look important, right? Jonathan Kay says, leading accounting and business consulting firm Deloitte Canada announces new outreach campaign to non-human clients. Really, this is real. Here's the tweet. And he took a picture of it just to make sure, but it says, Deloitte, sovereignty means forging respectful and reciprocal relationships between governments, non-human kin, the land, and others. Okay, so if I'm dragon kin, you've got to forge a respectful, reciprocal relationship with me? I'm just kidding. I think they may mean like the animals and the nature that is animals, right? Like that. But do you believe them? I don't believe them. I think that the almighty dollar is actually what drives a company like Deloitte. And I think that that's what their investors want. And I think that you can be respectful, but like I've seen situations where there are big corporations being respectful by giving lots of money to move somebody off land they don't want to be moved off of, but we're being respectful by giving this money. You know what I mean? So like, I don't believe them. It seems like a bullshit virtue signal, and they're missing their audience because people who know what Deloitte is aren't making sure that, the non-human kin are part of the whole package, right? Like it's just not, it's weird, right? It's a weird thing. And if they do mean dragonkin, then that's even worse. CTV News is reporting, in the wake of the U.S. tariff threat, Vancouver City Council unanimous on buy local motion. So this is a weird, perverted version of Team Canada, and we're going to we're going to get into the Team Canada tariffs thing in just a second. But what's going on with this? Why it's elevated it into the government section and not just the Team Canada section is, businesses are being impacted, and they're being told, because of this motion, you are not allowed to access U.S. companies that you usually buy operationally important chemicals or operationally important whatever from. Like if your bakery imports some very specific chocolate chips from somewhere, right? Or something, if you're making chocolate cereal and you need something from the United States, right? I need the United States styrofoam to go in this. The Canadian styrofoam doesn't taste the same. I love chocolate cereal. Then you could be impacted, right? But instead of waiting for the tariffs to hit and to be impacted that way, the Vancouver Council, who seems to be influenced by China, maybe, I don't know, because wasn't the mayor of Vancouver placed by China and people were worried about the outcome and so on and so forth? Sim, right? Isn't that the same? Isn't that the whole thing? They're passing laws that now there's no tariff. There's no reason to change other than the threat of tariffs. But they're saying you have to buy Canadian, find it in Canada. If you can't find it in Canada, find an alternative that's in Canada. And that's a problem. And that's interesting that they're so malicious about the whole thing. Food professor says supply management is a system that fails to meet its core objectives beyond giving quota holders a substantial and inflated source of income. So they're talking, the hub.ca is doing a workup of the interprovincial trade barriers and things like that. So that's kind of a response to the tariffs as well. And the proposed response is diversify our customer base. In order to diversify our customer base, Ontario would need to be able to sell milk to, I don't know, Newfoundland, out east, wherever it is. Newfoundland would need to be able to sell moose meat to Ontario. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right? You'd have to open up these barriers that exist. And right now, supply management is an interprovincial trade barrier. Not having an Energy East pipeline, not supplying our eastern provinces with energy like oil, refined gasoline, that kind of stuff. That's a problem, and we need to fix that. And they're not talking about fixing that, and that's a problem. And so I'm glad other people are highlighting it too. I heard from, I look at my subscriptions, and I reliably get, this month has been very busy. So thanks everybody who's joined this month. It's lovely to have you here. This month has been really busy on my website, and that's great. And I check my subscriptions on Spotify and Locals and all the other ones regularly, but not all often. It just kind of is. Like I post my show and I go on about my day, and I'm glad people who want access can get access. On my website, occasionally people's credit cards or whatever cards they use to continue accessing the main show, the full show, sometimes those cards fail where they don't fail in other places. So if you were shopping somewhere, it would go through no problem, but because it's on my website, it fails. And I've heard from people on Spotify that if they try to get the main show, if they try to sign up for the main show, that's happening, but they've signed up for other shows on Spotify same day, no problem with the same card, my show, problem. So I think that's weird. And it's an interesting bit of censorship. I had somebody talking to me yesterday about how censored I am. And I'm kind of used to it now, right? And he was saying, he was lamenting about his own censorship, and he was surprised at the impact on me. And I think that that's one of the things that they do, because if you try and it fails, you're like, oh, I'll come back tomorrow. And then, maybe tomorrow never comes or whatever it is. Like it's not a huge problem yet. You know what I mean? It's not like you're listening to me every day and then the full show is no longer accessible. People go out of their way to fix that problem. But if you're not onto the full show yet, then you could forget, right? And so it's a weird censorship tool too, that I think that is in play. And I think it's also in play in other areas as well. So like across Locals, across Spotify, across Substack. Substack is like the slowest growing channel ever. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about tariffs. I just think the censorship's interesting, and I'm watching it as like a third party as opposed to being impacted and being sad about it, right? Anyway, Toronto Star is reporting. This is funny. As I always say, the only solution to our problems in Canada, of course, is bring in more people from anywhere else but Canada and raise taxes. Here's the Toronto Star saying exactly that. To successfully fight Trump and his tariffs, Canada needs one thing: more Canadians, right? Canadians from anywhere. It doesn't matter. By reducing immigration levels, Canada is facing the economic fight of our lives with one arm tied behind our back. We should be projecting strength and growth. So yes, the Toronto Star's put a whole news article together about how we need to import people, really, because a growing economy is better to fight Trump with than a stagnating economy that's, only relying on those old stock Canadians. Do you know they save money? Ugh, how dare they? Canada Records says, and folks wonder why MAID is so popular in Canada. This is Stephen Harper's take on Team Canada. So he's on Team Canada, everybody. And if you didn't realize yet, Team Canada is not the team you want to be on at this point in time. Team Canada hates Trump. They hate Doge. They think spending money on trans surgery in prisons is a really good idea. And trans people never go to prison and lie about being trans in order to gain access to the women's prison to rape women continually while they're in prison. Right? Like, it's crazy. Anyway, here is what Stephen Harper says. Quote, if I was still prime minister, I would be prepared to impoverish the country and not be annexed if that was the option we're facing, Harper said to an invitation-only audience. Now, because I do think that if Trump were determined, he could really do wide structural and economic damage. But I wouldn't accept that, said Harper. I would accept any level of damage to preserve the independence of the country. Important in that is to have a plan of how we would reorient our economy so we would recover that prosperity again and not just solve the damage, he added. So I think we're so stymied by bad policy. Just Energy East is a good example. We have money going to Saudi Arabia for foreign oil to the tune of like hundreds of thousands of barrels a day. I think it's billions of dollars, $4.3 billion, I think, off the top of my head, but don't quote me on that number. Lots and lots of money. And we could fix that. We could send that money to Alberta. We could send half that money to Alberta and get all the oil we were getting before, probably, right? We could probably get it cheaper. And so there's all sorts of benefits to that, but there's no political will to fixing that problem. Isn't that weird? That's a strange thing, right? And so Harper's saying we've got to reorient, and it's the same thing as everybody else. Like, you're not talking about getting rid of supply management, man. You're not talking about Energy East. And so you're not really talking about solving the problem. And that's a concern for me, because everybody's saying, all the economic damage is on the table. Is supply management on the table? No, supply management's not on the table. Economic damage, yes. Supply management, no. Energies, no. No, that's not on the table either. We can't do that to the environment. Next question. Right? We will destroy your economy and your lives, but we will not build pipelines or dismantle the dairy cartel. Welcome to Canada. You're welcome, they say. Do you want healthcare? F you, right? Get out of here. Go sit in the hallway. Andy Lee says, I distinctly remember being told Canadian flags were appropriate as a symbol of right-wing rage. Now it's Team Canada. Cuthland says Canada's flag appropriate as a symbol of right-wing rage. This is from February 19th, 2022, right? A couple of years ago now, 3 years ago now. The red maple leaf during the Olympics would usually symbolize unity and pride in the performance of the nation's athletes. But, in the context of the Freedom Convoy, it's right-wing rage, you evil, evil right-wing ragers. Terry is responding to this as well. And Tasha's saying Saturday, February 15th is Flag Day in Canada. Really? Can you buy a United States flag with 51 stars on it yet? And do you think I could get that by the 15th? She says, 60 years ago, our flag was first raised on Parliament Hill. So Saturday, fly the flag, the Canadian flag, post a flag to your social media. I don't want to get arrested by CSIS if I post a flag to my social media. Oh my gosh, right? Like right wing attack is attacking X. Oh my gosh, run. It's crazy. And Terry says, I love my country, but if I do this, it'll be hard to forget the last time there was a hullabaloo about the maple leaf. 4 years ago, Justin Trudeau ordered the flag lowered across the country for 6 months in a national shaming ritual. Trudeau premised his project on the discovery of, quote, mass graves at an old Catholic residential school that was never discovered and remains undiscovered. The federally enforced national humiliation persisted long after the Mohawks made him raise the flag back up again. Churches were put to the torch, statues were pulled down, even the old red ensign was defamed as the hate symbol of a racist colonial settler state. So yeah, maybe I'll hoist the flag Saturday, but if I do, I'll remember what I wish I could forget. And so they have taken our country, our history, our flags, not just the Canadian maple leaf, but all of them, and debased them and stomped all over them, called them racist, settler, colonial, and now they're saying, "Oh, Team Canada, raise your flag. If you're not with us, you're with the evil Donald Trump." You know, and it's just I don't buy it. I think the whole thing is absolute bunk. The whole thing is tone deaf. Their nationalist campaign feels icky, and I want them to stop because they hate Canada. And now it's like, again, the Edgar suit or Craven wearing the lion, although he respected the lion. So it's not even that respectful, right? They're just putting on the shawl of, they're putting on the plaid, coat and the hat and everything, and they're calling themselves Canadian, eh? And they hate Canada. And so that's clear. That's clear. And Rosemary Barton looks like she's sniffing a fart the whole time that she's talking to this person here. It's unbelievable. Anyway, here is Anita Anand, and she's out. She's gone. She's not running for re-election, thank goodness. But she says, "Oh, Team Canada, it's critical. This is a critical moment." Bullshit. These people hate Canada, and they're selling us nonsense, and they don't even believe it. They don't believe this at all. Here we go.
This is the critical moment of our time. It is a time when the national unity that we are seeing across this country, the need and the desire to buy Canadian, support Canada, has never been more strong. And there's a reason, because each and every one of us wants Canada to remain strong and free, and we are prepared to do whatever it takes to ensure that occurs.
We will impoverish all of you to make sure that we stay strong and free. And we will not build pipelines, and we will not change supply management. No, you will just suffer. Here's Danielle Smith responding to all of this. She says it's Trudeau's fault that this is happening. And yeah, but it's all by design. It's not just Trudeau's fault. Somebody's told him this is what's going to happen, and he's made it happen, allowed it to happen, turned a blind eye while it's all come to fruition. Things like not appointing a fentanyl czar, which he appointed, but it's just as good as appointing Bill Blair, et cetera, or Brenda Lucki. Here's Danielle Smith.
Let's be super clear about why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in today. It lands 100% at the feet of Justin Trudeau, who even just a few weeks ago gave a speech where he thought it was an affront to women that Kamala Harris didn't win. We're in a trade negotiation with a brand new administration, and we have a prime minister who keeps on poking his finger in the eye of the current administration and has damaged that relationship. So if there's a failure, it lands at his feet, which is why I'm counting down the days to when he's gone and we can have a reset. It's 47 days to go, and I hope he doesn't continue torching the relationship in the meantime. All I can do is try to repair and build relationships that should have been repaired and built over the last 4 years. That is what we do by having our office in Washington. We have good relationships with people on both sides of the aisle, because that is what diplomacy is. You have to be able to work with both Democrats and Republicans, and you have to refrain from expressing a preference for who you would like in the White House. And so if there's a failure of leadership, and if there's a damage to the relationship, it's 100% at the feet of Justin Trudeau.
But he's done that on purpose. This is from January 21st, 25. So this is recent. It's not like yesterday. I just hadn't seen it before. Here's Doug Ford. He is threatening to turn off the lights. He says, I could turn off the lights in Florida. And so threats like this don't seem like a good idea. It doesn't seem like a good idea. Like, my initial response was this meme. I think I might be up here. Hold on. Yeah, I was like, stop. Please stop. Like, this is not a good idea.
Electricity grid.
So this is him saying, I could turn it off. And this is just a bad way to threaten somebody.
I want to further integrate our energy and electricity grids. People don't realize, as we stand right here, right now, we can deliver from Ontario electricity as far south as Florida. In just a moment's notice, we can flick on the switch. or flick off the switch. I prefer flicking on all the switches. And encourage more exports of Canadian energy and electricity to the U.S. to power your economic growth.
First question: could you flick it off and then flick it back on, please? Let's see the lights flicker. I want to see it. I want to see it happen. Go, do it. Dare you? The other part of this is, like walking in there and say, that's a nice electrical grid you got there. Shame if somebody flicked it off, eh? Flick, right? Like, give me dude. Come on, stop, please. This is not like we see through you. The United States has put on 25% tariffs on Canadian steel because there's been a whole bunch of Chinese steel coming into Canada. Canada then puts a maple leaf on it, right? Brands it Canadian steel and then sends it on down there, and it's subpar steel dumping. So Donald Trump put on standards for steel and all sorts of protections to prevent the steel dumping that was going on. And he wants to have steel made in the USA. He wants to have homemade steel, and all of those projects are now spinning up. So that's an interesting situation going on. And Andy Lee says, here are the top 10 steel companies in the world. This lends context to why China sends steel to Canada, and we just brand it Canadian steel and send it on. Top 10 steel companies in the world. Number 1, China. Number 2, Luxembourg. Number 3, China. Number 4, Japan. Number 5, China. Number 6, China. Number 7, South Korea. Number 8, China. Number 9, China. Number 10, India. Okay? Tata Steel Group. Tata is huge in India. Massive, just a huge family. I think it is still family owned as well. So, what Trump's doing is protecting the United States from dumped steel. Doug Ford goes down to Washington and is promoting Fortress Can-Am, where he can flick off the lights if he wants to. And he says, he's talking about how China is ripping off American workers by flooding markets with hijacking global supply chains. He says, America has had enough, American workers have had enough, and I've had enough. Let's project against Chinese investments and ownership in strategically important sectors such as critical minerals and energy. Do you think Doug Ford is not aware of like the TD $3 million, or was it more than that, $3 billion? I think it probably was a B. $3 million doesn't sound like enough. So TD got fined, big fines with regards to money laundering for cartels, fentanyl, and I don't know so much about China here, but the implication is there's a lot of the fentanyl is Chinese money laundering, and that's going through banks in Ontario. Do you think is it plausible that Doug Ford doesn't know? Or because I'm going to show you later, not very long, like this is an excellent interview, and this guy's saying fentanyl is just a cover. It's the Chinese money laundering that's the real problem, and the Chinese corruption in the government that's the real problem that Trump's trying to fix. And I think that that's true. I hope it's true. And so is it plausible that Ford doesn't know? Because no, right? Like I'm a dude in my garage, and come on, right? Like you can't not see this. In order to not see this, somebody has to be giving you lots of envelopes full of money to be looking the other way. Because even when you're looking the other way, you can't not see this, like really, okay? So, and he's the premier of Ontario? I don't know, man. Here is Justin Trudeau. I don't want to listen to him very much, but he says, True North is reporting, Prime Minister Trudeau condemns U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum as unjustified and is pledging a firm response. I think it's funny he's out of the country. Do you think an interim leader would have gone to the AI summit, the AI Action Summit? I think it's really interesting that Trudeau's out gallivanting. He said something at the end here that I thought was important. Like I thought I'd play the last 20 seconds, but I can't remember why I thought that. So we're just going to play the last 20 seconds. So 20-second Trudeau warning. I can't remember what he's saying here. I think it's maybe a Team Canada thing, and I think it's rich. I can't remember. Here we go.
This is a moment of pulling together. This is a moment for Canada to be solid in our identity, in our sovereignty, and in our presence for our friends and neighbors.
He didn't want to say united. That's what it was. He said this is a time for Canada to be solid in our what did he say? It's on here too. Solid in our identity. Simba says, what? The identity that according to 2015 Trudeau doesn't exist now exists all of a sudden? Like, what are you talking about? Solid in our identity. And he doesn't want to be united. He doesn't want to present a united Canada because he's the great divider. He wants to smash us and wedge us into a million little pieces, right? So we have to be solid in our identity, not united in our identity. Very interesting use of words, Justin Trudeau, right? Like, and awful, just awful. Here's True North again reporting Bloc Quebec leader Yves-François Blanchet says Quebec needs a voice in the Canada-U.S. trade negotiations. And I say to deny pipelines, he needs to shut up. He needs to be quiet. And I don't want to play. Blanchet plays with his voice a lot. He's very slow and very deliberate. And I don't want to listen to him today. So sorry about that. We'll move on. Justin Trudeau says, I just announced Canada's new fentanyl czar, Kevin Brosseau. With over 20 years of RCMP experience, he'll accelerate our efforts to detect, disrupt, and dismantle the fentanyl trade. And he's an insider. He's been a parliamentary secretary for years under Justin Trudeau. He's a Liberal acolyte. This is like appointing Bill Blair. This is like appointing Brenda Lucki. This is trying to hide it, but not hiding it that much. And if I know that, Trump knows that. Okay. And Patty says Danielle Smith should have appointed the czar because it was her idea. Instead, we have a Liberal suit who doesn't believe there's a fentanyl issue in Canada. We're screwed again by this lame duck prime minister. Yeah, that's probably true. Stephen is responding to Trudeau, and he says LMAO. Canada totally didn't just pick a fentanyl czar to bury the problem. So weird that Trudeau didn't mention that this was his associate deputy minister of fishing for the past 4 years. All of Canada's drug enforcement task force leaders must have been washing their hair. Yeah, so everybody else is busy. Oh, I don't want to be the fentanyl czar. Thanks, Justin. Tom Quiggin says the new fentanyl czar in Canada is Kevin Brosseau. He is a former RCMP and recently served as Deputy National Security and Intelligence Advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. In other words, another Trudeau appointee who has been chosen for his submissive stance towards the PMO. So he'll do what he's told or he'll be removed, just like all of the other people who are still in our government. This is 2 minutes. It's great. It's worthwhile. I think that we need to listen to this first. We'll listen to this and then we'll maybe circle back to Sam Cooper. This is Mark C. And I can't remember what his last name is. Mark, it's in here somewhere. Talking about Chords. There it is. Talking about how fentanyl is actually just a cover. And it's not quite exactly queued up, but it's pretty close. He's saying fentanyl is just a cover. Trump is going after the corruption in Canada, and in order to do that effectively, he needs to be able to operate. And so this is what he thinks. I think he's right. Here we go.
Is everyone has to admit there's a huge problem. You can't just say, oh, it's 0.023 of 1% of fentanyl. If fentanyl is just the cover for what's really wrong. What's wrong is massive money laundering by the CCP on a huge scale. Fentanyl is just one part of it.
The next question I have for you is, when you say the hurricane's going to hit Canadians, does the everyday Canadian right now, are they feeling the effects personally of that money laundering? So how is it going to be the wake-up call for them when it's like, when is it going to hit them?
I'll start first, then Sam can go, but it all is going to begin and end with the shitbag currency. And the currency is now, let's just say 144, but the country owns no gold. I know You're a gold bull. The country sold its gold at the low. The country wants to keep rates down, and everyone's walking on eggshells on the stupid tariffs. So I think it's very expensive for Canadians to travel. It's very, very, very inflationary there, yet the government keeps lowering rates, trying to think that lowering rates solves the problem. No, it's just a Band-Aid on a busted artery. I mean, the problem has to get solved from within, where they get after the money launderers and they get after the CCP criminals and rid them from the Canadian institutions and just own up to what's really going on, rather than the bullshit you read in the Globe and Mail or the bullshit you read at Global. And by the way, Sam, when he was exposing this stuff, Sam was bad for Vancouver Sun business.
Okay. It's been a little longer than I wanted to run it. I've got one other clip on here to show you. Okay, here they are talking about who should be the fentanyl czar, and Mark here is not convinced that they're going to put anybody of worth in the position, and I hear him. He says there's only 2 people who could really do it, maybe 3, and Sam's one of them. Or no, I'm getting his name wrong. No, I'm not. Anyway, he says these are the people who could do it, and nobody else, basically, and none of those people were appointed. Here we go.
Well, I'm curious. I know Mark wants to see you as the fentanyl czar, Sam. Sam, do you have an ideal person in mind for that?
Sam, there is only one person. I mean, there's another guy who I know who used to be at the RCMP. He did his job so well they ran him out. His name is Henry. So Henry TSO used to be with the RCMP. He could do it. Sam could do it. That's really about it. Who it needs to be. You're laughing. You know, I don't think it's funny. I mean, I'm being serious. Look, I mean.
Well, I don't think Sam wants to necessarily do it, right, Sam?
Well, Sam will do it working out of Wyoming. But you know, Sam and I have been on the phone with real guys. I mean, with real intelligence people in Canada. And Sam and I talked on Biden's, you know, last kind of summer, fall. You know, it's going to come down to Trump, I think. And again, the great thing about the internet is it doesn't go away. Trump's basically going to go to Canada and say, you got a choice. You can either keep playing ball with the CCP or you can play ball with us. And his 51st state thing is rhetoric, you know, and that's not going to happen. But something very close to it could happen where Canada realizes we have a major problem. And our only way out of the problem is to join sort of hands with you guys, call it what you want. But we need your influence. We need your clout. We need your software. We need your law enforcement to rid the country of what's really going on.
Sam, are you surprised that...
Daniela. So we'll just leave it there, but you should go watch it. It's very interesting. Links in the description if you're interested. Mark, this is the same guy who was just talking. He says, the CCP is on our northern border. It's called Arctic Mexico, Canada. Black Swan says, the way I see it after digging into Sam's work is that Canada is not a functional government and is a legitimate security threat to the United States. Yes, we are. We are a security threat to ourselves. Look at what we're doing to ourselves. We are hamstringing ourselves for no reason, and we're allowing megalomaniac narcissists like Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney to run us into the ground, and that's weird. That's weird. The food professor says, hey, President Trump, while you're at it, can you please put an end to daylight savings time, please? So I think that's popular. Let's add that to the tariffs. Canada demands an end to daylight savings time. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful